Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something really fascinating, almost like science fiction, happening in maybe an unexpected place.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Imagine this tiny island nation, Iceland, right? Just over 380,000 people. But they hold possibly the most detailed genetic map of any country on Earth.
It really is like a living time capsule.
And it's changing how we think about human health, about evolution. It's huge.
It is. And what's so remarkable, I think, is how Iceland's specific history, its geography, they've kind of combined to create this perfect living lab for genetics.
A living lab, I like that.
Yeah, we're finding things about rare diseases, even, tracing human evolution. But of course, when you get into research this deep, this personal, it definitely stirs up some big ethical questions, too.
Exactly. And that's our mission today, right? To unpack why Iceland is so unique genetically, what amazing, sometimes surprising things they've found, and also tackle those really critical questions about, privacy. Who owns your genetic code?
Yeah, there's a lot to get into.
Okay, let's start there. So scientists often say Iceland's population is incredibly homogeneous, genetically speaking. What does that actually mean, and how did it get that way?
Right. Well, not just talk, it's very real. It comes down to something called a genetic bottleneck, going back about 1,100 years.
A bottleneck.
Yeah, think of it like this. The entire population today basically descends from a pretty small group of original settlers, mostly Norse, some Celtic people, arriving way back in the 9th century.
Okay, a small starting group.
Exactly. And then, crucially, they were geographically isolated for centuries. Very little immigration coming in.
Yeah.
So that initial gene pool, it just stayed remarkably stable, kind of undisturbed.
Wow, for over 1,000 years, it's like a snapshot.
It is. It's like a sealed biological time capsule in a way. And that gives researchers a much clearer genetic signal to work with compared to, say, more mixed populations.
Right, less noise in the data. So with that kind of stability, what scale of research are we actually talking about? It must be huge.
Oh, it's unprecedented, really. There's this biotech company in Reykjavik, Decode Genetics.
Heard of them, yeah.
They've analyzed the genomes of more than 200,000 Icelanders.
Wait, 200,000 out of less than 400,000 total population.
Exactly, more than half the country.
That's astounding.
It is. And because of that scale and the homogeneity we talked about, they've uncovered thousands of rare genetic mutations, markers for diseases, things you just don't find elsewhere, or certainly not concentrated like this.
So you have this incredibly detailed map, this massive data set from Decode. What are some of the actual, maybe surprising things they've learned about Icelanders?
Well, some really fascinating stuff. For example, there's a very clear genetic gender asymmetry.
Gender asymmetry, what's that?
It means the origins are different depending on whether you trace the male or female line. Studies suggest something like 80% of the male ancestry goes back to Norse Vikings.
Okay, mostly Viking men.
Right. But on the maternal side, it's different. Around 63% of the female lineage seems to come from Gaelic women, likely from Ireland and Scotland.
Whoa, 80% Norse men, 63% Gaelic women. That paints a picture of those early settlement days, doesn't it?
It really does. It tells us a lot about who was coming over and, the dynamics of how the population formed.
That's wild. Okay, so beyond Ancestry, what about medical discoveries? Has this led to any breakthroughs?
Oh, absolutely. Huge ones. For instance, they found that Icelanders have a much higher frequency of certain mutations in the BRCA2 gene.
Ah, the one linked to breast and ovarian cancer risk.
Exactly. And finding that concentration wasn't just, an interesting data point. It directly led to nationwide screening programs.
So real-world health benefits.
Tangible benefits. Yeah, early detection, intervention. It's made a real difference.
Okay, and then there's this other fact I read that it sounds bizarre. Something about some Icelanders not being able to smell rotten fish. Like literally lacking the gene for it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that one gets attention. It sounds quirky, but it's actually a powerful example of human adaptation.
Adaptation. How so?
Well, the thinking is it's linked to centuries and centuries of relying heavily on fish, sometimes preserved fish,
Yes.
in a very harsh, cold environment. Maybe not being able to smell certain types of decay was actually advantageous for survival,
So evolution got rid of the smell.
or at least reduced the perception significantly in some lineages.
Yeah.
It just shows how our biology can shift, sometimes quite rapidly, based on unique environmental pressures. Losing a sense, even.
That's incredible. Evolution in action right there.
Exactly.
But, okay, these discoveries are amazing, obviously valuable. But this whole situation, the unique genetics, this massive data collection, it's also sparked some pretty intense ethical debates, hasn't it?
It absolutely has, and rightly so. When you have this much sensitive personal genetic data collected, especially when a lot of it was initially centralized by a private company like Decode, well, critics raise serious flags.
About what specifically?
About privacy, first and foremost. About informed consent. Did everyone truly understand what was happening with their data? And then the really big one, who actually owns your genetic information? Is it you? Is it the company that sequences it? Is it the state?
Yeah, those are fundamental questions.
They are.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just theoretical debate. This went to court.
Right, I remember reading about that.
Yeah, the Icelandic Supreme Court actually ruled back in 2003. They affirmed that people absolutely had the right to opt out of the National Gene Database.
Even if their data was already in it.
Even retroactively, yeah. It was a significant ruling.
That sets a precedent, doesn't it? What does that mean for the rest of us beyond Iceland?
Well, it highlights this huge challenge we're all facing in the age of big data and genetics. If a government or a corporation can map your DNA so comprehensively, where do we draw the line? How do we protect personal autonomy and control over our most fundamental biological information? It's definitely not just an Icelandic issue anymore.
It really makes you think. So, zooming out a bit, how do these specific insights from this relatively small island nation connect to the bigger human story? Why should, someone listening care about Icelandic genetics?
That's a great question, because Iceland, yeah, it's Vikings and volcanoes, but it's also this unique living laboratory we talked about.
Right.
Nature, history, genetics, they all converge there in a way that gives us these incredibly valuable windows into human biology that apply to everyone. Understanding those BRCA2 mutations helps cancer research globally. Understanding rare diseases there helps us understand them everywhere.
So it's like a magnifying glass for certain genetic factors.
In a way, yes. It helps researchers grasp fundamental aspects of human evolution, how diseases work, things that are relevant to all of us.
Can you give maybe one more example of that broader impact?
Sure. Researchers have even used Icelandic DNA because of its stability to help trace how early humans migrated across Europe after the last ice age.
Wow, really? How?
Because the Icelandic gene pool is less muddled, you might say, than in places with constant migration waves, scientists can sometimes spot older patterns or track genetic changes over time more clearly. It acts like a reference point, offering clues to our shared deep history.
That's amazing. So this deep dive really shows Iceland isn't just unique. Its genetic profile is like this incredibly valuable key, unlocking insights into our health, our history.
Yeah, it's a pristine window into our past and potentially a guide for our future health.
Which kind of leaves us with a big question to chew on, doesn't it?
I think so. It's this balance. Can these small, isolated populations like Iceland provide answers, unlock secrets about health and history that larger, more diverse nations simply can't? Or, on the other hand, do the ethical risks, the potential downsides of mapping genetics so extensively do they ultimately outweigh the benefits for humanity?
A crucial question for our time.